Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining tonight's webinar. It's great to have you here with us. We've got a very exciting topic coming up tonight. And before I get into the nitty-gritty of what we're going to be talking about in the webinar, just a little bit of housekeeping. So if anyone does have questions throughout the webinar, please use the Q&A box below. Just makes it a little bit easier when we're doing the Q&A at the end to be able to answer your questions. By all means, if you've got any comments throughout, please use the Zoom chat. We'll be checking this as we go, and then we can talk through this in the Q&A. If anyone is hard of hearing, we do have a way to have a live transcript. So if you go to the bottom of the Zoom page, it says show captions. If you press that button, you'll be able to have a live transcript as we go. So hopefully that will come in handy for you. But just to introduce myself, my name is Jem. I'm one of the health coaches at Second Nature, and I'm also a registered nutritionist. And it is my delight to introduce Simi and Kirsty, who are both registered associate nutritionists, and they've been doing some incredible work behind the scenes to support different cultures on our program with our members. So, yeah, to get us started, I guess, Simi, Kirsty, take it away and tell us a little bit about why you decided to do this project in the first place.
Thanks so much, Jam. Hello everyone. Welcome to this presentation where we're going to be showcasing some of the work we've been doing so far, supporting our members from different religious and cultural backgrounds. This is just the start of a project and it's going to be expanding. I thought I'd just introduce myself and then I'm going to pass over to Simi, who's going to get us started. So this is something Simi and I felt really passionate about for a very long time. I grew up, I lived in the Caribbean when I was younger and left to go to university. But while I lived in the Caribbean, that was where I trained to be a chef. And so my first experience of foods was really all about Caribbean culture. And the British Virgin Islands is where I still, in part, consider home. From there, I went to Scotland to study and then moved to Africa to work in Malawi. And since have visited other countries in Africa to work, including Mozambique, and then moved to the Middle East for 10 years. I love experiencing different cultures and I love food from different cultures. And so when we decided to do something for Second Nature, this seemed really appropriate for me to really throw myself into. And I'm going to pass you over now to my wonderful colleague and friend, Simi.
Thanks, Kirsty. Thanks, Jem. Yes, welcome everyone. I'm Simi. And just as Kirsty said, we created this project on supporting diversity. We both have a huge passion for it. My family come from a Sikh background, and I've also been brought up with the influence of East Africa because my dad grew up in East Africa. My mum's from India, so yeah, lots of cultural influence when it came to food and celebrations growing up. So it's something that I've really enjoyed pouring into this project as well. Yeah, today we want to showcase some of the resources that Kirsty and I have developed in this project. And we'll also provide some useful advice and tips later on as well. For those who are Second Nature members here today, just so you know, when we do talk about our guides, you will get a list of all of the resources and guides emailed to you after this webinar. So that's something to look forward to as well. Okay. So why diversity and inclusion? The NHS has shared with us that in the UK, the prevalence of obesity and overweight varies by ethnicity and is highest among those from Black Caribbean, Pakistani, and Black African backgrounds. So this already shows a cohort of Second Nature members that need a different approach to supporting them reduce their risk of obesity. And again, that's why Kirsty and I thought, okay, there's a whole load of members here on Second Nature that, need some different support, to reach their goals because of these kind of stats. For example, Black adults having the highest percentage of obesity compared to other ethnicities. Among women, Black African, Black Caribbean, and Pakistani women are more likely than other groups to be obese. Among women, again, those from Pakistani, Black African, and Black Caribbean backgrounds were most likely to have a very high waist circumference, which is a risk factor for diabetes and other health conditions. And from the Diabetes UK, people from Black African, African Caribbean, and South Asian backgrounds are at a higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes from a younger age. And why is this? Well, we know that one reason is that there are some barriers to change that people from ethnic backgrounds may experience more and they may struggle with more. So, for example, storing your fat around your middle, around your waist, can impact your BMI, your body shape, and your risk of developing diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol, and cardiovascular disease. But this genetic makeup is sometimes seen as quite healthy and quite attractive and normal in a lot of cultures. So some may not want to change this, or they might feel judged by their community if they did want to change this. So they don't change, and this is a barrier, for them getting healthier. Family is also a massive barrier to change in a lot of cultures. It might be due to passing down family recipes and not wanting to steer away from that, especially if they have, some memories associated to them or sentimental value. If a elder has developed a recipe and passed it down or something like that. Living in an extended family as well, living in an extended household, you might not have as much control over your food intake and your choices. Family feeders, this is a big one, and we'll come to this later because it can be quite a tricky one to navigate in some cultures. Old wives' tales, so this is an interesting one, relying on herbal remedies rather than balanced nutrition or even medication. So therefore, you're not getting the professional nutritional support that some might need. And immigration determines how much tradition is maintained in your food choices and in your meals, how much of a Western influence there are on meals, and even how some might source their ingredients. And this also brings into play things like language barriers when trying to understand nutrition more, or barriers to accessing nutrition knowledge and education as well. So let's talk about Western influence a little bit more. We know that how much of the traditional food eaten varies significantly between families. Some are breaking away from traditional food, especially maybe those of the more current or younger generation. They might be putting their foot down more at home with what they want to eat, simply because they have more choice these days. Maybe they have easier access to eating outside of the home, so to fast food, which is a lot cheaper as well. So yeah, it could just be easier for some to eat other foods rather than just their home-cooked traditional meals. And likewise, with more of these fast food restaurants popping up as well, that are serving more culturally specific meals, again, lots of choice. And more convenience foods in supermarkets. So these make cooking much easier, cooking traditional meals much easier, such as prepared pastes or ready-made mixes of different seasonings, pre-made rotis, things like that. So these points are showing that the availability and ease of eating these traditional meals now have actually got a bit of a Western twist on them, and making cooking at home and eating with the family a little bit different than before, perhaps. And this can really challenge these traditional food choices. And this is also shown with a change in eating routines. So where in a lot of cultures, it's quite typical to eat like main meals. So have like your main meals and not snacks so much. But now we've seen across the UK, across different backgrounds, less balanced meals and more snacking over the day. So just that change in how different cultures are also eating throughout the day. So let's take a look at what our members have been saying so far about our resources. So here's some feedback that Kirsty and I and various other health coaches here in Second Nature have got through. For example, I do not think Second Nature is targeted to people from my ethnic group. The way we eat food is completely different from the meal plan that was sent to me. I'm trying to figure out how to follow the program. I've gone through the Second Nature recipe book and I did not see the type of staple food that I eat and enjoy. Another one, I'm from India. Have you got any meal plans that are suitable for an Indian? It would be helpful for me to follow to reduce my weight as we cook Indian dishes at home. The foods in the Second Nature recipe book are not what I would normally eat. My palate is diverse, but I still prefer mainly African dishes. So we took on board all of that feedback and along came Team Kimmy, that's me and Kirsty. We teamed up and we thought, okay, something needs to be done. We knew that this was important. Everyone needs to be represented at Second Nature, to feel supported and included and just feel like you can see yourselves in our resources, and our recipes as well. So anything to make your health journeys easier and happier, Kirsty and I were on it. And the first thing we wanted to do was to train the health coaches at Second Nature to better understand different religions and cultures. And this includes their traditional foods, their lifestyles, religious and cultural celebrations, and even dietary restrictions. So one thing that we came up with was this staff cheat sheet that we're giving you a sneak peek of. So it shows the cultural and religious food preferences and restrictions for all of these major religions in the UK. And we developed training on different cultures, including the Caribbean, West and East Africa, India and Asia, and then all of the religions of Judaism, Islam, Sikhism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Rastafarianism, Buddhism again, Taoism and Shintoism. And then furthering our training and research on different religions, Kirsty and I produce all of these supportive guides for Second Nature members. So some of you might have seen them before as well, just to help them on their health journeys. So whether you're Muslim, Jewish, Sikh, Hindu, Christian, Buddhist, Taoist, Shintoist, we have these various guides to help you. So yeah, that's what we've come up with so far. And also developing a guide for different religious events as well, and navigating these in healthy, balanced way as much as possible. So for example, looking at our Islam guide, so it's titled Following Second Nature as a Muslim. And it includes things like how to stay healthy during Ramadan, which is a major time each year for Muslims, with specific advice on suhoor and iftar, and how to stay healthy during the two different Eids as well, so Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. We've included many recipe ideas. Some of them are Second Nature recipes, some of them are other ones as well, because we wanted to provide quite an extensive list of recipes in our guides. We know that this is the core of eating healthily. It's the core of enjoying food as well in your health journey. So we wanted to give a good variety of recipes that you can cook yourself at home. So while we have some great Second Nature ones, we recognize that you needed more. And also Second Nature needs to, expand here as well. So we've sourced many Second Nature friendly recipes for from other places for you to explore as well in these guides. And in the Islam guide, we also touch on the psychology of eating too. Judaism, so following Second Nature in Judaism, how to have a healthy Shabbat, mitzvah, and Shavuot. We discuss that in great detail in this guide. And also advice for major Jewish calendar events as well. So we've got independent guides on celebrating Hanukkah, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Passover, and Sukkot as well. And then following Second Nature in Hinduism. So we've actually created a balanced thali plate. So again, we want Hindus at Second Nature to see their way of eating and what's familiar to them. So if they don't use a plate and instead regularly eat from a traditional thali, then we felt this should be represented, and we have a great design team on board at Second Nature that actually developed a thali plate with all the balanced nutrients on there. This guide also touches on fasting during specific Hindu festivals. A lot of Hindus are vegetarian, so we've considered and addressed this as well. And again, just looking at the major Hindu celebrations, and we actually have separate guides for Holi and Diwali as well. And then following Second Nature, if you're a Sikh, again, we have a balanced thali plate specific to Sikhism. A thali plate is usually eaten off at the Gurdwara, so the temple for Sikhs, but sometimes at home as well. Alcoholism is quite a big part of Punjabi culture, and Punjab is where many Sikhs come from in India. So this can be quite an ingrained habit amongst a lot of Sikhs and Punjabis. So we've discussed this in the guide and provided some tips on moderating alcohol intake. We've also provided some exercise suggestions and also touched on some advice for Amritdhari Sikhs. So Amritdhari Sikhs, those have been baptized, so they avoid all animal foods. They're on quite a strict vegan diet, so we've advised on some vegan meals for them as well. So as you can see, these guides offer advice and tips that are really specific to each religion. So we didn't want to just create a generic resource, that's not very representative. We've really tailored our advice to give useful ideas for each religion. So here's a little sneak peek again at the Hindu guide as an example. So as you can see, here's the balanced thali plate that I was talking about. So you've got your vegetarian protein sources, your fats, your carbs, your vegetables, and they're all familiar ingredients and traditional ingredients that Hindus are likely to eat. And also a little snippet from the Diwali guide. So you've got tips for breakfast, how to get vegetables in there, or how to cut back on sugar as well, because traditional Indian sweets are, huge at Diwali, and how to make up your thali plate with different recipes as well. And similarly for the Sikh guide, so again, we talk about things specific and important to this religion, such as seva, which means service. And this is a big part of Sikh religious duty. And langar, which is a hot meal served at the Gurdwara, the temple for Sikhs. So, if a Sikh at Second Nature wants to go to the temple and have a meal and is wondering, well, how can I still make this a balanced meal? It's part of my religion, it's part of my culture, but I also want it to be part of my health journey. And that's exactly what we discuss in this guide. And finally, just to touch on in this section, these are all of the guides that we have on Christianity too. There's a lot, and with Christmas coming up as well, we hope that these will be useful for you. And I'm going to pass over to Kirsty now, who's going to go through our cultural resources.
Thanks a lot, Simi. So I'm just going to touch on culture and what we've been developing there. So we have been working hard to develop guides and healthy balanced plates for a wide range of cultures. So the guides include Second Nature recipes, but as Simi just touched on, we've also been purchasing recipe books, scouring the web, and just really trying to find a diverse range of quite authentic recipes that fit with Second Nature guidelines. I just mentioned that we do have specific plates, and I'll be showing you what they look like. But we also have, as you saw on the religion guides, culture-specific suggestions for the proteins, carbohydrates, fruits and vegetables, and suggestions for cultural specific events. And we really wanted to focus on this, as Simi said. We want anyone that logs on to Second Nature to think, this program's for me, this program understands me, it's a bit of me, it understands my culture, my heritage, my religion, and I know that I'm going to be supported and that I don't have to change who I am to fit in with this healthy way of eating. So the first guide I developed, of course, going back to my love, was the Caribbean guide. So we did include some of the Second Nature recipes in here, but as many of you will know, if you're from the Caribbean or if you have Caribbean heritage, people sort of go, Caribbean, oh, jerk chicken. And it's like, well, I'm not Jamaican, I'm from, any one of the other islands. nothing wrong with jerk seasoning at all. But what we wanted to do was really represent every island in the Caribbean. So I just went through all of the islands and we were looking at the national dishes or most popular dishes. And then we took those and we sourced recipes for you. So in the Caribbean guide, you'll find things that are really familiar, like ackee and saltfish, or callaloo, or curries like goat curry or rundown. Or my favorite is their doubles. For anyone who's from Trinidad, you'll appreciate that. So yeah, so these guides are really set out just to really help you to find the foods that will work for you. And they each have a plate with them. And the plate comes in two versions. There's an app-friendly version, so you'll scroll down through it. So all of these boxes that say protein, fat, they just fall as if you're looking at it on a phone. But then we also have these plates that you can print off as well. So this is the Caribbean plate, and you can see when you look at the list of proteins, there's goat on there, there's oxtail, there's meat stew or curry. If you look at the fish, the saltfish grouper, mahi-mahi snapper. If you come to carbohydrates, you'll see things like roti, cassava, breadfruit, jackfruit, plantain. So things that will feel really familiar to you. We didn't want to create a generic Africa plate. We're aware that there is one that exists through the NHS, but much as we wouldn't have a generic European plate, we felt it was really important to break Africa down into sections. And then even then, within each of the African guides, we try to represent each of the countries in that area. So we currently have 2 guides developed. There'll be 5 in total. So we've developed East Africa and West Africa, and we're currently working on South and Southern, Central and North. So in the West African guide, again, we've gone out and we've sourced loads of recipes that we feel, that we've had feedback on from our West African members requesting, and that we felt were most representative of various countries in West Africa, like jollof or fufu or various stews. And again, you can see the West Africa plate there. We've included a side of fruit on this one, with lots of the lovely tropical fruits there. And then on the East African plate, again, we've sourced some East African recipes for you. So listed there down the left-hand side. And again, if you look at the plate, you'll hopefully feel that the food's represented, the carbs represented, the protein types, and the vegetables are much more representative of the food that you would eat. We also have a guide which is following Second Nature, the Indian way. As you can see from the plate model, there's lots of different complex carbohydrates there, like paratha, naan, all sorts, aloo, poha. And then on the protein list again, paneer, goat, other protein sources that may feel quite familiar, again with the vegetables, gobi, saag, kaddu, so things that are written in a way that feel much more welcoming to you as an Indian person who eats these dishes. We have also in this guide, we've got a breakdown of an ideal breakfast, lunch, dinner with some salads. And in this guide as well, we of course link to the Sikh and the Hindu guides, and provide information on those for you. And there's links within the guides straight to those other guides. You've only got to go to one place. And then for China, Japan, and the Far East, we've also been developing guides. So we've got following Second Nature, the Chinese way with the Chinese plate. We've got following Second Nature, the Japanese way with the Japanese balanced plate, again, with proteins, carbs, and vegetables specific to the culture, and then Far East Asia as well. So I'm going to pass back to Simi, who's just going to talk you through some of the feedback that we've had since we've published these guides.
Yes, yeah, let's have a look at what our Second Nature members have to say now that we've produced and shared a lot of these guides. So I've gone through it and it will be very helpful. Thank you. I will use this as my guide going forward. I'm very touched that you wrote something about Jewish New Year. Thank you so much. The African diet plan you also shared is very helpful as I feel more comfortable with familiar taste. And oh wow, this is so exciting and beautifully put together. It's so incredible that there's an article about it. And what a gift to have these resources. That's superb. Thank you. So yeah, all of these lovely comments. There's been so many more as well, which have really touched us both because it's just shown that, you know, we're achieving what we set out to do, which is for you guys to feel familiar and comfortable and all of those words, you know, that I just read out with Second Nature and just progress in your health in a way that's true to you. Yeah. So to help do that, just to summarize, Kirsty and I have trained the Second Nature staff and health coach members in particular in this topic, and we've done about 20 plus hours of staff training. We've developed just under 30 guides. We've developed 2 balanced thali plates, which we showed earlier, so the Sikh and Hindi ones. 2 African plates, so West Africa and East Africa, and we are working on the other areas of Africa as well at the moment. 1 Caribbean plate, an Indian plate, and then looking over to East Asia as well with a Chinese plate, Japanese, and Far East Asian plate. And lots more coming up as well. So in no particular order, these are the things we're working on at the moment. So like I mentioned, we're going to look and explore the other areas of Africa too. So Northern Africa, Central, Southern and South, the Middle East and surrounding countries. So Kirsty has lots of lovely experience there as well. So that will be a good one. The UK, so we've actually, yesterday we published our British Culture Guide. So that's out. And that's a really fun one. So yeah, hopefully the coaches will be sharing that with you all very soon. And it's on the app as well. So it starts at the top of the UK and we work our way all the way down to the Midlands and all the way down to the south. So yeah, that's an exciting one. And we're going to work on recipe edits as well to include traditional suggestions to some of our Second Nature recipes. So we're now going to move on to kind of like a second part of this presentation. We're going to be advising now on overcoming challenges at religious and cultural events, which is something that is so important and can be a really big part of your health journey and your Second Nature journey. So it's something that, yeah, we thought we would address today. So first of all, enjoying family traditions. This is important. When it comes to following Second Nature and, you know, being healthier, it doesn't mean that you have to not enjoy these family traditions or even attend certain family occasions. We understand that there's a lot of respect here. You might want to enjoy your meal out of that respect or, you know, just out of simply having fun because this is what you've been brought up with and it's important to you, it's a part of you. And that's absolutely fine. You don't always have to create boundaries and, you know, restrictions around these events. And if that is the case, then again, we just always think about that overall balance here at Second Nature. And the same thing applies. It applies to these kind of occasions as well. If you want to really enjoy a certain family meal, that's fine, but maybe think about the rest of your meals that day or over the next few days or even over the week, depending on the occasion. So for example, if you're having a large evening meal, you know you're going to a family member's house, there's going to be lots of food, you want to just indulge a little, you want to not think about Second Nature so much in terms of, you know, any restrictions. That's okay. You might want to then just look at your breakfast that morning or your lunch or even breakfast the next morning to help you get back on track and back into your Second Nature routine. So it's just finding that overall balance and not feeling like you can't do something that's been so important to you and, you know, is so important to your family and your life. And just looking at, okay, well, if I'm going to enjoy this family tradition, that means a lot to me. Let's look at how I can bring Second Nature into my other meals or habits over the next few days.
And then we have the mental preparation for those family meals. For those of you that feel that you might struggle with the foods available and you're concerned that you are going to overindulge when you really don't want to. So you may have language that you've always used around food. It's special, it's a treat. I mean, I think everyone on this call can probably identify with that word. And so sometimes it can be really helpful, especially if the event is more than one day. So iftars in Ramadan or Hanukkah or Rosh Hashanah or any event, Eid, that lasts 3 days, any event that is sort of extended, it can be really helpful to meal plan for those events and think about setting yourself a framework of what we would call everyday foods and then occasional foods. And what you're doing here is you're giving yourself permission to have those foods and to enjoy those foods, but you're factoring them in as part of a healthy, balanced diet. If you're the person preparing the meals, so say everyone's coming to you for Christmas or everyone is coming to you for a Saturday meal in Judaism or an Eid feast, you might want to think about your exposure to the foods. So we have lots of members that's coming into December who will start purchasing the sweet foods for Christmas the first week of December, and they're sitting in the house and then they get eaten and people find themselves in this cycle. We don't live in a world anymore where supermarkets close. There's availability of foods for every event right up until the event. So don't overshop and don't shop too early. And if you do purchase things because maybe you saw a deal and you really wanted to grab it while it was there, think about where you can store these foods out of sight, up in the attic, back of a cupboard, out in the shed, in the utility, somewhere, a spare bedroom where it's not just sitting in the kitchen, especially if it's a food that you know you really enjoy that's going to be calling your name all week long. And as you know, as Simi sort of touched on the last slide, we have a habit of seeing an event as much bigger than it really is. And often a religious, cultural event is really just one meal. And it can really help if we strip it back and view it as that one meal and just really plan around it and think it's just that one meal or it's just for 2 days. So what will I do before? What will I do after to ensure that I am nourishing myself and that I am voting for my future health goals?
Thank you, Kirsty. Yeah, really good points there. And this brings us on to also managing family feeders, which can be very challenging. It's challenging to set those boundaries. It's challenging to reject what is a love language. Giving food shows a lot of care, a lot of love between families, especially on important occasions as well. And you might not want to offend anyone, you might not want to come across as disrespectful or rude. And all of these, tie into just wanting to simply say no, but not feeling like you can. So some things you could do, consider putting together some sentences to address these family pressures. You can even speak to your family about your health goals. So just try to get them to understand and get them on board or make them realize why this is so important for you. Ask yourself how you might react if a friend or family member was in a similar position. So if someone came to you and said, brother, sister, auntie, uncle, cousin, I'm on this program or I want to be fitter, and so this is why I'm going to eat this certain way tonight. What might you say? I'm sure many of us will try and be very supportive. And it might just be that case the other way around as well. So just putting things into perspective and, realizing that there are a lot of people on your side as well. And it just takes having that conversation and opening up can just help with not making it so daunting as you might think. And if it helps, maybe have that motivational conversation with yourself ahead of time as well. You can even write this down or use it as a way of journaling. You can think of some questions and answers on how you would ideally like to respond to your family members. You might want to think about your expectations and your boundaries and how you can set certain expectations and boundaries with these family members as well. So, yeah.
Great, thanks, Simi. My favorite sentences, and I always recommend them, are, "Oh, that looks fantastic. I'm a bit full right now. I'll come back to that later," because it's not offensive. You're accepting it, or I'm really full. I might take that home with me if that's okay. And it's finding things that you feel comfortable saying if you don't feel comfortable saying no because you're worried that it might offend someone. So I think we could all work on a few sentences to have in our back pocket at some of these events. So don't fall into that trap where you feel you can't say no. Have your sentences prepared. Another strategy is if you're laying the table or if you're at a family member's for dinner, is if there are feeders, consider A, how you lay the table, and B, where you can place yourself strategically, either to be away from foods that you really love that you might just mindlessly start snacking on, or that you don't feel that you'll be able to easily resist, or away from the primary feeder so that you haven't got someone sitting next to you trying to encourage you to eat. So think about how you lay the table and where you place yourself. Also think about what you could add to the table, whether you're a guest coming or whether you are the host. So could you add a soup or a salad starter, or could you add a few extra vegetable dishes so that you can really bulk your plate up while still enjoying the meal? And another tip is just make sure you arrive really well rested, because if you arrive tired, you are going to want to eat foods that you probably might not eat if you are well rested.
Yeah, and just following on from that, yeah, absolutely, Kirsty. So not arriving to the table hungry or thirsty, and staying hydrated. So, like Kirsty said, not confusing that thirst for hunger. And all of this can help with avoiding overeating. Starting your meal with vegetables, so filling up on that fiber first. If you're eating with your hands, so a lot of traditional foods like chapatis or rice, or chicken wings, for example, you eat with your hands and you can still use the balanced plate to eat your meal off, or even use the hand guide. So if your hands are busy eating, it's a perfect time to think about your portions with your hands. So a fist size is about a carbohydrate portion, a palm for your protein, 2 cups of vegetables, and a thumb of healthy fats. So yeah, it's a perfect opportunity to do that and actually bring in some portion guidelines. Make sure you're eating mindfully. So really savor the meal, enjoy it with those around you, appreciate the effort your family members have put into making it, or maybe yourself if you know if you've been cooking this meal for everyone. It's a really nice time to just slow down and taste this occasion through the food with your family. And another way to eat mindfully is to check in with your hunger. So check in with yourself, align yourself to this occasion and to this meal. And the hunger scale is really useful here. So some of you might be familiar with this. We try to aim for about a 5, 6, 7 on the scale, so that you're comfortably full, you're not over full, and that way you can still enjoy your meal, but within a reasonable portion. And if you are still hungry, you can add additional protein, healthy fats, and vegetables to just help you feel satisfied and full, without overdoing it with the carbs.
So desserts, because every cultural and religious event has its own particular special desserts and sweets that we consider as something that we really look forward to. Probably there's a lot of nostalgia there, a lot of childhood memory, that sort of ties you to these foods. So before you make a sweet choice, so there's some things that you can consider. So if you've placed yourself well at the table and you have a little distance between yourself and the sweet food. It gives you a moment to pause and ask yourself some questions. So, do I really want this food? And if the answer might be yes, and that's fine, that's absolutely fine. What is driving this choice? Do I actually, if I actually sat with my eyes closed and ate this, would I really love it? Have I ever eaten it slowly enough to know if I actually really, really love the taste? Or is it nostalgia? Is it that it takes me back to a childhood memory, or, you know, time with a relative that was special? Is it because you're having sweet cravings? Are you perhaps feeling emotional because of this event, or even anxious because there's a lot of people there, or you know, you just feel slightly out of your comfort zone for any given reason, in-laws, other family members, you know, is there a reason why you're feeling anxious and you're perhaps looking for a bit of comfort in those foods? So if you want to proceed, then how much of this food do you really need to satisfy your food craving? Do you need a full bowl full, or will a small spoonful be enough if you eat it slowly? And does this food support your long-term health goals? Now, it's absolutely okay if the answer is no and you want to enjoy it as an occasional food, but just running through these questions in your mind can help you to make an informed choice. And finally, is it something that you will really enjoy? And if it is, take your time, eat it really slowly, try to eat it undisturbed, and really enjoy the moment. And when you're finished, put your spoon down and go back to your everyday way of eating.
Yeah, brilliant. And just following on from that, consider the volume of sweet foods at certain celebrations and what you might be able to do to reduce this. So, you know, in addition to what Kirsty just said, it might be I can reduce the actual sugary dessert that I do want to enjoy. But you know, to sort of top up my sweet dish here, I can opt for things like fruit and yogurt alongside, or maybe consider taking your own healthier dessert option. It might be that could be your contribution to this family meal, if it helps you in your health goals and also keeps the family happy if you know if you've got something in your hands when you turn up to their door. So yeah, that could be quite a nice win-win situation. And again, many lovely dessert recipes in our guides, and on the Second Nature app as well. Fruit, we recognize that fruit is a massive part of many cultures, and there's actually a lot of meaning behind fruit and dried fruit on these occasions. So just keep in mind what a serving size of fruit is. We do have a Second Nature guide on this as well. But we're aiming for about 30 grams of dried fruit as a serving size. So for example, that would be about 3 large dates. Sharing a dessert is also a way to, you know, reduce how much you have, or just taking smaller taste serving sizes. So again, eating mindfully, that might mean that you just need a small amount to satisfy your sweet cravings or, you know, your sweet taste buds, and that just might be enough. Opting for things like mint teas, herbal teas, fruit teas can be a really nice way as well to satisfy those sweet taste buds and get that lovely flavour after a heavy meal. But again, as we keep saying, remember it's absolutely fine to enjoy these occasional desserts. It's fine to celebrate with food, you know, and sweets and desserts. It's fun, it's colourful, you know, and it's part of being happy and healthy in life and having a balanced mindset around food and your health journey.
So just to round off, I just want to talk a little bit about that voice within. Many people that I work with at Second Nature struggle with their critical inner voice, making them feel really guilty if they're not perfect, if they eat something that isn't part of their set plan, if they overindulge at all. So it's really important that we practice self-kindness and forgiveness if we eat foods that aren't typically part of our balanced intake, and actually accept that during a family festival, we may not lose weight, we may pause in our weight, and we may even gain weight. And that's actually okay, because we're not going to necessarily lose weight on a weight loss journey every single week. And we're balancing life with reaching our health goals. if you are struggling with critical inner thinking and self-berating, note those thoughts down and then think, if I had a cheerleader inside me, what would that cheerleader say right now as a response to this critical voice? And list those thoughts, or even think, if someone was saying these really unkind things to someone else, how might I respond if I was their cheerleader? We also want to avoid falling into all or nothing thinking, well, it's only for a month, or I'll start again next Monday, or I'll start in the new year. Um, we can pull that back and actually see each meal as completely disconnected to the next meal. It was something I think, Simi, you came up with years ago about dividing the day into quarters. And something that happens in quarter one has no effect on what happens in quarter two. So if in quarter three you ate a bit of cake, you don't have to think, well, I've blown it. I'm done now. I've got to just eat my way through the rest of the day because I'm a failure. You can say, well, that was in quarter three, but I'm now moving into quarter four. And actually, it's not connected at all. There's no bit of string connecting my meals. So I can just start in the next quarter and get back on track. And again, avoid the justification thinking trap. Well, I have no control over this. I'm not responsible for the food preparation. I can't say no. I have to go with the flow. Sometimes that is the case, but typically there is something we can do to vote for our future self. And so do put some thought in. If you're on Second Nature in a community, or if you're in a group with a health coach, just chat to your coach about strategies for managing these thinking traps, and think about how you can mentally prepare yourself for an event, but mostly just be really kind to yourself. Food is celebration, food is love, food is family. So enjoy food. And on that note, I'm going to say thank you, everyone, for logging on and for listening. Simi and I just wanted to say, you may not have seen yourself represented here tonight, and we would love to hear from you. So please do comment in the chat if there's anything that you feel would make your Second Nature journey a better one. Because we are listening, we are doing what we can to support you. So please do make sure you leave your comments, and we'll gather them and we'll use them to develop our strategy for next year. So thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh, that was great. I was smiling the whole way through it. I think as a coach, I want to say a personal thank you, because coaching day to day, it's made such a big difference to, members, and being able to support them in the way that they need it. And I think this is only the beginning. You guys have created so many guides, and as a team, I think it's just going to get better. So yeah, thank you so much. And all of the conversation in the chat, we've not had many questions, but we've had some incredible comments in there. So someone said, I just want to add that I found this live very educational and interesting. So thank you, guys. I did send a link, that we've got the cultural guides on the Second Nature webpage, and people have been reading through those and saying that they're helpful. Thank you, Kirsty and Simi, for an excellent webinar. So much help and to guide us. So yeah, I think this is definitely a very impactful webinar. So thank you both.
You're welcome. I'm just going to the top of the chat, and I love Mohammed. It's so damn tasty. It would be so much easier if it didn't taste nice. And that's a really good point that you've made. And food is really delicious. For all of us, our cultural foods are really delicious. So it really is about going for quality rather than quantity. And if you are still hungry, as Simi mentioned, have some extra protein, have some more of the vegetables. Just try and keep an eye on the carbohydrate servings.
Yeah, definitely. And our guide again breaks that all down. It breaks down what's a carbohydrate and what's a protein and what's a fat in, using these traditional ingredients and food groups. And it's for everyone as well. People who just want to enjoy different meals and different cultural foods as well. It's just showing you how you can still make them balanced for everyone. And Mohammed, I hope you enjoyed your kebabs as well.
I was laughing when I was reading that. I love that. It's so good.
Louise has said, where are the recipe for those different ethnicities? So they're inside the guides. And when for the Second Nature members who have signed up today, because these guides are unfortunately only available for Second Nature members, but when you receive an email from Second Nature, it should have a link. But you can also ask on any community and ask your health coach for resources for your culture. And then also, if there's anything in particular you're looking for, like a particular recipe, we do have a channel on our Slack program, which is how we communicate as coaches, and they'll share on there. And one of us will try to find the recipe for you. So we will do what we can to support you, even if there isn't a guide yet ready for your specific cultural background. Olibasayo, yes, we have the West and the East, and Southern, Central and North is coming.
Yeah, that's for Africa. Yeah, we do have Nigerian meal planning guide as well. If you're from Nigeria, I'm not sure what part of West Africa you're from, but we have that, and the meal planning guides is also something we want to start growing and developing for each country, I guess. So yeah, it's a relatively new project, but there's so much to come. And like Kirsty said, we welcome any kind of feedback so we know what to prioritize as well, because obviously the world is huge, huge and beautiful, and there's so much to do with this, but we're super excited to just get stuck in with you guys because yeah, it's all about you, and we want to make sure, again, you all feel represented. So do reach out.
Absolutely. And I was going to say, for anyone who's on the call who isn't a Second Nature member, if you go onto our website, there's a place where you can reach out and you can send us an email. If you do have any feedback or anything that you think is missing, as we said, we really welcome that feedback. So it's as inclusive as possible. We do have a question. I was just flicking through the chat. Someone's asked, I was wondering if I could use brown rice interchangeably with cauliflower rice.
Yeah, absolutely. Cauliflower rice obviously has no carbohydrates and lots of nutrients, and brown rice is the most nutritious rice that you can eat. So we do recommend that you do have carbs. We're not a carb-free program at Second Nature. We're a reduced carb program. So we recommend quarter of a plate of carbs at a minimum 2 meals a day. And do speak to your health coach if you're not sure about your balance, and if you want someone to have a look at your meal plan or your food diary or just at your meals for that day to sort of help you. But yeah, that sounds, I mean, mix them together. How delicious.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
No, definitely.
I've
Yeah.
never tried that before. That's a really good idea.
Some in.
So it's just about, like, you can still have your usual meals, but make these little tweaks, like Kirsty said, mixing some cauliflower rice into brown rice or something like that. And we've sourced even some recipes like jollof rice using cauliflower rice. And so yeah, so there are tweaks that can be made as well. Although, we love authentic traditional recipes. Having that Second Nature twist on things to make things a little bit healthier is great and creative as well. And again, you can work with the guides or with your health coach to help you guys do that.
I can see Mohammed said that he it's the difficulty is the time for prep, but if you think about it, so a big plate of fattoush that you can buy in the shop with some hummus, some mutabal, some tabbouleh, what a lovely plate of food with some chicken or meat, and you can actually buy this even as takeaway. Even when we're buying takeaways, we can still order a healthier range of foods from a lot of takeaways. So again, just reach out on one of the channels or to a health coach. And we're here to help you, and we're all trained in this now. So,
Thanks to you guys. You've given us some great training. It's been fantastic.
So Angela, can we get the recipes through the app? Yeah, so just above your comment, Angela, Gemma actually posted the guide. There's a guide which is in the
I'll pop it in the chat below because I feel like there's been quite a lot of conversation since then.
On that guide, it should take you to all of our culture and religious guides. So
Mohammed is really making me laugh, by the way. He said just being here has made him hungry.
Yeah, Teresa said the same. And it's funny because Kirsty and I working on this project, we're just like forever starving. Like we're looking at all of these really beautiful dishes from around the world and we're just like, oh, we want to try that now.
uh, Teresa mentioned that a lot of her Asian friends eat a lot of fried foods. I mean, investing in an air fryer can be a game changer for people that really enjoy fried foods. And, air fryer foods really do taste good.
Yeah, they do.
So, that's a consideration. And Karine, yeah, I had a lot of fun researching the Caribbean recipes. And I really hope that, for anyone listening, whatever island you're from, I hope I found a recipe that represents it because we put a lot of time into that. So I'm glad that you're going to enjoy it.
I love
Oh,
that.
thank you very much.
I was gonna say something that really resonated was what you were saying about family feeders. And I loved what you said, Kirsty, about like moving yourself away and being strategic about where you place yourself. Because I think so many people who are listening to this right now, and even when listening to the recording, you don't want to upset or offend anyone. And it's a really, really difficult thing to manage, I think.
It really is. I mean, for 10 years, I was head of nutrition and dietetics for the UAE Armed Forces, and I worked predominantly with adolescent and young adults who were doing national service or who were at the military academy. And they would have such resolve all summer, and it would just break a month or two before resuming their training or coming back into the military academy because of the grandparents who were the feeders, and they're like, I did so well, miss. I got all the way through. I broke at the last hurdle. And it is challenging, because it's particularly in certain cultures, I know in Islam, disrespecting an elder is really viewed with there's a lot of guilt around that. It's considered, hugely shameful to be disrespectful to a parent or an elder. And so when an elder is sort of insisting that you eat, it is hard to say no. But again, practice some sentences like have a mouthful. That tastes great. I'll come back for some more of this in a while. And, just move yourself a little bit around. This is particularly a challenge actually for people from various cultures when they start to lose weight, that the elders in the family will be like, you've lost weight, we need to feed you. So it can be challenging. We're aware of that.
Yeah.
And we're
But those
Yeah,
are good strategies, though,
definitely.
for sure. And I think all those sentences will sound slightly different for each of us, but I think there's definitely a way that we can word it. Mohammed said that we should all meet up and go out for a meal, and then we can tell them how bad they're doing while they eat.
Sorry, I put you next to me and give you a big plate of fattoush. So eating a beautiful dinner.
Oh, amazing. Well, I think it's time to wrap up, but I just want to say again a huge thank you for all the work that you've done. Presentation tonight. I hope everyone watching this can see just how much work has gone into it. And as you said, this is just a beginning. There's still more to come. So a huge thank you to everyone for joining tonight. If you do have feedback, by all means, let us know as health coaches, reach out on the website. And yeah, we will try to get as much feedback as possible. So thank you, everyone. And we will be back for another webinar soon. Take care.
Thanks
Thanks
so much.
so much.